Okay. Basically, this evening, what will how it will run is Des and I will have a discussion about what he does and Soga World. Oh, looks like we've got someone else joining us. Hi, Kwaku. We're just kicking off, so you've arrived just in time. So yeah, we'll do the discussion bit first, and then I'll also open it up to the floor so that if you've got any questions you'd like to ask Des, I'll give you that opportunity to do that after we feel the discussion has come to an end. It depends how in depth we end up going, but yeah, I'll keep an eye on the time as well. And if you do want to ask any questions, you should hopefully have there's icons at the top in the top menu, and there's one that's a raise your hand one. So if you click on that, if you've got a question, I'll see that, and I'll hand over to you so you can ask your question. All right, right. Without any further ado, we'll get going. Good evening, everybody. I'm Sarah, and I'm the Music Industry Coordinator for Kirklees Year of Music. And tonight, my guest is Des, and I'm going to hand over to you, Des, to ask you to introduce yourself, and then give us a bit of background as to what you do, how your world came about, and how Soga World was developed to become a company.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, hi guys, my name is Des or Desmond Agyekumhene. That's my government name. But yeah, so I'm a co-founder of a Web3 creative agency called Soga World, where we basically onboard talent and brands into the Web3 space. Well, Soga basically stands for Sales of Goods Act, because which is the act that was created in, I think it was 1873 or 93, which basically manages the relationships between two entities. And so the idea that I came up with was that I wanted to be able to manage the relationship between music industry and the Web3 space. And so Soga basically sits in the middle as a creative agency. So my background is that I'm currently in the process of just finishing off my PhD at the University of Edinburgh School of Law, where I'm specialising in intellectual property copyright law, specifically looking around stuff around remuneration rights for creatives in the digital era. So I'm not sure if you guys have been aware or been following the DCMS inquiry around remuneration rights and artists saying that they're not getting paid. But I wouldn't say artists, but a particular demographic of artists who basically went and signed their deals pre-streaming, saying that they're not getting paid enough money. I've basically been doing research around that for the past 5.5 years. And yeah, I'm just literally in the last few months where I'm just trying to, I've collected all my data and now I'm just trying to get my head down and write, which has been a bit intense, but we'll come into that a bit later. But in terms of how the agency started, I've been, just a bit of background on myself. Obviously, I've been doing a PhD, and but before I did my PhD, I basically got into artist management about 10 years ago. And then before artist management, I was a scientist, specifically a biomedical scientist, where I specialized in microbiology and virology. And so the idea was basically how I got into music was that on the side, my side gig was I was, after I'd been working in the labs, I'd basically head into Central and I just session for a whole bunch of different artists. And what happened was, whilst I was at university, I ended up dislocating my shoulder and couldn't play drums, which was my instrument of choice. And so as a result of that, I had to have surgery and I was off work because I wasn't allowed to wear a lab coat. And so, because my arm was in a sling. So during that time I was off work, the artist I was playing drums for, I basically said to them, I've got some time off. Can I do something to help? I can't play for you, but I can manage you. And long story cut short, I ended up getting a couple signed to Sony RCA in a week. And that was my entrance into the music space. And basically what happened from there was like I ended up signing a few more acts to like Virgin and First Access, but we had a French DJ duo that we'd signed and they ended up having a song, and this was bearing in mind about 10 years ago, and it got like 1 million streams. And at the time I was like, 1 million streams, one stream must equate to £1. That means we've got £1 million. And I obviously so I ended up like speaking to the label, I was like, I'm due my commission. How do we get paid our money? And obviously at the time, nobody really understood what streaming was about. I remember like first label meetings we were having, like the A&R was just like, yeah, let's just put it on the Spotify and see how it does. Like there was it was like people didn't really understand what streaming was about. But anyway, long story cut short, I went to the label, asked them how we got paid. They were like, oh, no, we've got NDA agreements between you and Spotify, so we can't let you know. And I was like, okay, then, well, that's a bit strange, but I'll just go to Spotify and ask them. And so I went over and asked them, and they're like, oh, we can't say because we've got NDA agreements with your label. So I was like, hold on, how am I supposed to understand something that's directly affecting my back pocket, but I'm not allowed to know about it? It just didn't make sense. But anyway, long story cut short, I ended up speaking to a whole bunch of people because I wanted to be able to get my commission, my 20% commission, which was like 200 grand. So I thought it was £1 per stream. And then, yeah, like ended up being put in contact with my now supervisor, Dr. Smita Kerala, who's an IP professor up in Edinburgh. And I was just asking a whole bunch of questions. And she was like, oh, it seems like you're quite inquisitive in this area. Would you like to apply for a scholarship to do a PhD? Initially, I was like, I'm not sure, because I was like, I'm about to go on tour. I don't really fancy writing a thesis on the back of a tour bus. But at the same time, I thought it's a great opportunity to do something different. And so, yeah, I applied. Unfortunately, I got my accepted for the scholarship, and I've been doing my research. But then because of that kind of opened up the doors to me basically looking into the entire tech space. And just like I've had to basically go back, and like one of the chapters I've been writing is about the history of the recording music industry, but specifically the business of the recording music industry, and how you have so many different tech interventions that have happened, and the same issues that people have been talking about 150 years ago with the advent of the records and the vinyls, from like the CD players, from radio to MP3s to streaming, and obviously now blockchain technology and AI. It's been the same underlying issues that hasn't been addressed, but it's just a new technology that is just changing the conversation, and everybody's having this conversation as we're scared of the tech. It's like there's nothing to be scared of. It's just the underlying issues are the same, but nobody quite understands that. And that's basically what I've been trying to do my research. But anyway, that's a side note. How I got into creating my agency, it was actually during COVID. So I was really fortunate that before COVID, I discovered blockchain and Bitcoin back in 2016. And I basically had that aha moment where I realized like what the technology could do. And essentially what happened was there's a platform called Binance, which is the largest crypto asset exchange in the world. I was one of the first UK users of that back in the summer of 2017. And so when I was dabbling in the space, I was telling everybody, I'm a self-professed crypto evangelist. So I was pretty much telling everybody about the world of crypto, and like especially in the music industry, telling people to buy Bitcoin, buy crypto. Nobody listened to me, but it is what it is. And then obviously when the COVID happened, which basically sped the use of people using this type of technology, when the issues around what is an NFT came out, what is blockchain, naturally people came to me and asked. And so I was actually in conversations at the time with the head of Polydor, a guy called Tom Marsh. And I was basically doing a whole bunch of workshops for a whole bunch of different major labels. And he was like, oh yeah, you should do create an agency where, like, similar to how you have video commissioners, where video commissioners create the assets for videos, you should have like be an NFT agency or an NFT commissioner where you commission NFTs for different projects. And so that's pretty much what I did. But I wanted to be able to create really cool use cases and dope case studies that can be replicated. So like we've gone and done a whole bunch of stuff and worked with a whole bunch of different artists. Like we went and did the first NFT ticketed event in the UK, first NFT tickets for a festival worldwide. We went on tour with Neo and like did the first NFT project in Wembley Arena with him. Then obviously we went and worked with H and went and did the first NFT project to impact the UK charts. And so from that, I just wanted to be able to do really cool use cases and create a blueprint of things that can be replicated and kind of show that the music industry can utilize this technology in a way that is palatable and is organic and is there for everyone to use, and it's not something to be scared of. And that's then like evolved into now me building up my own tech product around verifiable credentials in the music industry. So yeah, Hopefully that's kind of answered the question in a roundabout way, but yeah, hopefully you get
it has a bit.
so.
Because I just don't know where to go with it, because of course with the streaming thing, you know, broken record, it's the hashtag broken record. And yeah, I was sort of watching the DCMS, and yeah, and it's kind of like you're right about the deja vu thing as well. And of course I've been in this industry for 36 years in the indie sector. So I've watched it from vinyl, you know, the scare of CD, the disinterest of the CD, and then suddenly the embracing of the CD, and oh, look how much money we can make. And so yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's really interesting.
yeah, because you're right. It's kind of like each time there's the record companies are like, oh no. I mean, it was the same with downloads. Forget streaming, but you know, they downloads. No, copyright infringement. And then you've got the peer-to-peer appearing, Napster, LimeWire, those, and filling that gap in the market. While the record companies are going, oh no, our copyright will be infringed, and then self-professing it does. And so yeah, I should imagine streaming was quite like, what the hell's this? Right, we're just jumping on the bandwagon now.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when I talk about streaming, I always say to people, like, why was streaming created? It was created to solve piracy, because at the time you had people illegally downloading songs, and the music industry was absolutely decimated. Like I was really fortunate enough to, as part of my PhD, to interview somebody who worked in the music industry at the turn of the century, like back in 2001. Then they left in 2005 and ended up like moving to another industry. And their mind, it was like a time capsule, because they were literally talking about why they left, because there was no money, people being made redundant, and it was just such a bleak time. And then now, obviously, like the industry's kind of gone another way, where streaming is like, it makes up for like 65% of revenue in the year, like for all revenue. But then obviously it's not like the heyday of back in the 80s and 90s, where they were just making so much money from selling physicals that like people were just doing absolutely crazy stuff. I mean, I read this book, Howling at the Moon, by, I think it's like something Yetnikoff, the A&R for Michael Jackson, the label head, and he talks about his time in his 70s and 80s, like where he had some of the biggest artists in the world, and like his relationships with some of the like other like music moguls, if it be Geffen or if it be fucking Clive Davis and whatnot. And you listen to their experiences, and it's so far from what is currently happening in the music industry now. I mean, they were real gatekeepers, and so they could literally control so much more. But obviously now that's changed now.
And though you do still have, you know, those gatekeepers have been replaced with new gatekeepers, if you like. And Spotify's it's kind of like, come and play in our playground, but, and then there's caveats, isn't there? I mean, to be in that situation where you're signed to a label, and then your music's with Spotify, and which is a retail outlet, and yet you're not privy to how that works financially. It's just
it's a very strange one. I think like the main difference is that with Spotify, it's a subscription model, whereas obviously physical is like a one-time purchase. And so like with that, it's a completely different revenue stream. And so to try and treat Spotify with the same, or imply or put the same models on top of Spotify from physical sales in Spotify, it just doesn't work. And even like the splits, like traditionally record labels, they would do an 80-20 split, and so 20% in favor of the artist, 80 to them. And so that's why their model was literally like, we can sign so many artists, we only need one artist to do very, very well. And whereas obviously where with with streaming, because it's subscription based, they're trying to do that same split, but it doesn't really work because it's all based on market share. And so as long as you can get like top streamers, you signed a major artist who can stream very well, but you're still trying to do the 80-20 split. Is that fair? Nah, because obviously back then labels would sit there and try and charge breakages on streaming revenue, which doesn't make any sense. But again, if you're an independent artist, it's great because like gone are the days where like obviously pre-streaming, pre-downloads, you need that, like the importance of having a record label back you was like literally the only way you're going to increase your chances of making it big. And so that was why it was such a massive like deal to get signed to a major. But obviously with the advent of technology making it so simple that you don't have to go to a massive studio in order to get the work done. You don't have to go and get it mixed or mastered by these massive magnets. You can just do that all at home. Like the barrier to entry is so much more lower, which is great because it means that anybody can have the chance to make it. But obviously the downside to that is that there's no quality control like there once was. And so you have like 100,000 songs, 120,000 songs being uploaded onto Spotify every day. And it's like, who's listening to 120,000 songs? I can tell you I'm not. I'll probably find one song that I like a day and I rinse it, and that's about it. And so it's the whole consumer, the way that we like as consumers, we listen to music, that's changed as well. And so when you speak, obviously, the whole, the broken record campaign, it's great because it's shining a light on a particular issue of artists who signed deals before the streaming era occurred, and they are like, we want to be able to get paid fairly. We shouldn't be having old royalties bolted onto the current streaming revenue. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. And so that's shining a light on it. But that doesn't mean that that works for all artists, because you've got independent artists who are earning 100% or 90% of their revenue from streaming, and they're doing very, very well. And so it's like, that doesn't really touch the sides. That doesn't even help them. So it's just an interesting, it's an interesting position. But then at the same time, you have it, like those stats that came out the other week where it said that like 95% of all the biggest songs come from major labels. And so there's still that level of like monopoly where if you want to do big, if you want to do well, you have to attach yourself to a major label. And so it's, even though the system has changed, in some ways it's still the same.
Same. Yeah. When it comes to NFTs and the payment processes through that, so with the ticketing, were the ticket prices at a set price, and was it all paid through crypto?
So funny enough, when we went and did our case study, so the first ticketing event that we did was with the South African DJs, massive amapiano giants called Major League DJs. And what we learned was that when we were speaking to a lot of different customers and people who wanted to use Web3 tech or NFT tickets, a lot of these guys didn't know how to go and buy Bitcoin, send it to their wallets, then attach it to a MetaMask and all of that stuff. They just want to buy the ticket, and they just want to do it as quickly as possible. So like one of my first case studies, when I was trying to get people to buy NFTs, I was having to coach them through the process of trying to get a wallet and all that stuff. And it was just so hard that people just stopped. They were like, you know what, allow this, I'm not going to bother. Because then it was like you have to pay these gas fees, especially when it was on Ethereum. And the gas fees were like 200 quid before you even got the NFT. It was just, It was laughable. But anyway, so we went and partnered with a great platform called Get Protocol, who are these guys from Amsterdam or the Netherlands. And they basically gave us a easy route of being able to use your credit card or use your card in order to buy like these tickets as NFTs. And then it was such a seamless experience, because initially I was like, I'm going to have to hold a lot of these customers' hands, and there's like thousands of people who are buying these tickets. And I was like, I have not got time to sit there and speak to everyone how to, do that. But then what Get Protocol did was they basically had an amazing user interface that made it so simple, where it was like similar to your normal ticket distributors, if it be a Live Nation, Ticketmasters, whatever. And so they were able to buy the tickets. It be like the back end was like blockchain tech. And so when you scanned the QR code, the QR code basically, it was really cool because the QR codes changed every 5 seconds. And so it was like that extra layer of security. So it was like once it scanned and you were in, there was like you couldn't then try and resell it. And because the event was sold out, there was like ticket touts outside saying, how do we get tickets like to sell them? Like one guy gave me like a couple £100 so that he can try and get in. And I was like, everything's on the system, everything's on the blockchain. So I can't, even though I'd love to, I actually physically can't do it. And so that was a really dope use case. And then what happened was at the end of the show, all the guests had the opportunity to then claim the ticket as an NFT that was then put on the marketplace like OpenSea and whatnot. And then they were also given other gifts like a soundtrack to the playlist of the entire song, like the songs that were being played. And on top of that, they had like images and whatnot that was given. And so we were then able to basically use that same case study for Neo when we went on tour with him. And so we basically wanted to target his super fans. And so he went and released like a set number of tickets where fans were able to get access to his his sound check and meet and greets. And so like imagine going into like an empty Wembley arena literally about an hour or two before this show, and we got like some chairs, like about 20 chairs, sat like put up in front row, and then brought the fans in, and then Neo started his sound check, and he would like be interacting with the fans and saying, so guys, like what song do you want me to do next? And they'd be like, oh, So Sick. And then he'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they start playing So Sick with the live band and all the lights and stuff whilst doing sound check. It was actually so sick to be able to watch that, pun intended. And like seeing that, and then like being able to have that interaction, like the fans you would never get that, and it was great to be able to experience that and be able to kind of lead that. And then obviously they then ended up having their pictures taken, and then what we went and did was at the end of the show, we, with all their tickets, we then attached the actual imagery from the night onto the NFT and their own personal images as well as an NFT. And then they went and got a hand signed set list as well from Neo and some CDs, and that's all attached to it as an NFT. And so that was really, really fun, especially just like because he was in the UK last year, like working on his album, and like being able to be a part of that and then see him work, and like he's honestly like seeing that at the top level, it was absolutely insane. And then we also did some stuff with like Strawberries and Cream, where we went and created NFTs that fans could buy to get them like backstage to meet a whole bunch of different artists and stuff. So that's with the ticketing, that was it. Like we realized like people care about having a seamless experience, and obviously ideally it'd be great for people to buy with using crypto, but the barriers of entry is just so high that it's just pointless, and that's not what people are there for. They're there just to get tickets. They're there to have, like, what we want to do is attach the highest level of experience, which is basically meeting the artist. That's the highest level experience that a fan is going to get, and we don't want to have any type of barriers of that. So we want that to be as smooth as possible in order to kind of bring the space forward. So
it's just amazing, because then basically they're not just buying a gig ticket, there's all this other stuff that comes with it. And like you said, and then the best thing is that, hey, you're there in Wembley meeting the artist as well. What an experience. What an absolutely amazing experience. Serendipity, that's one thing that this industry, there is when things become successful, serendipity is always there. For you to have that company in Holland just go, it's all right, guys, we got this.
So it's actually funny because how I got introduced to them was through another manager, and he actually brilliant mind. He's like a ex-Cambridge graduate who went into law school, then ended up setting up a management company, And I was just talking to him about the space, and he was just like, yeah, I'm just doing the rounds. I'm talking to absolutely everyone. And then I was like, really? Okay, then that's interesting. And he's like, yeah, you should go and talk to these guys. They're doing some interesting stuff. And I was like, oh, and now I've got a really good relationship with them. Get Protocol, definitely checking them out. They're really, really dope guys. I've got a lot of love for them.
Yeah, it's really good when you can bump into someone like in that situation that can, just deliver and also be just trustworthy and cool people that are they're so into what they're doing, just like you are. And then you just click and what they have works for you. It's almost like a perfect gift in a way, isn't it?
100%, most definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. The other thing that I picked up from all of that as well is it can that doing NFTs that way. I know you've got the sort of special ones for the special or special options for the special for the fans, those 20 odd fans, but for anyone else buying tickets that way, how much safer is it? And will it help with inflated gig pricing on tickets where people resell? Or is there a, do you think protections will be better?
Oh, so much more better, because obviously, as I mentioned, I mean, we had ticket touts outside the gigs and they couldn't get access to the system because the system was built on the blockchain. So each ticket that was minted has its own smart contract. And so from a tech perspective, you can tell like if it's a real ticket or whatnot from that aspect, but I won't get into that, but it's all there. But in terms of like the resale, it wasn't attached to any resale secondary ticketing market. Everything was on the app. So if you wanted to be able to rebuy, like if because we had sold out, people who couldn't make it, they instead of like trying to email or put on their Facebook, I'm looking for somebody to buy my ticket, blah blah blah. What they did was that they just go into the app, make the ticket available, and then like literally then it's there for the entire public to see, and then they can just buy it at face value. So it's not like you're missing out on revenue. And it was great because it literally meant that we knew exactly how much it was that we were getting from each ticket, and then we were able to basically price it accordingly. Obviously, you still have the same issues where people would buy the tickets and then claim that it was fraud, and then try and claim the money back from the tickets. And then you're like, I can see that I scanned you at 7 p.m. at this time, and I've got a picture of you coming to the gig. And so you're definitely there. It was not a scam. But then you're having to, like, that's an issue with Stripe that you have to kind of contest with. But obviously you just got to price the tickets accordingly to kind of cover that as well. So yeah, it was secondary market proof, put it that way.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So on your there's another project on your website that's that one that is NFTs attached to art, isn't it? And is that one a bit more about merchandise and branding and that side of it rather than tour tickets?
So with that one, that was the first NFT project to impact the UK charts. And so what we went and did was we went and collaborated with a particular artist who created artwork for the artist H. So I'll take it back and put a bit of context. So the artist H last year went and he had his debut album released with Capitol Records, and we wanted to be able to basically exploit the web, like the NFT space, and try and do something decent to kind of help push his sales. And so what we went and did was we had plenty of conversations with the official charts company, and I learned a lot about the UK charts during this particular project. Like they sent me like their 200-page chart like rule book, which I didn't realize it was such an extensive rule book. It was basically telling us what was allowed, what isn't allowed, and just from a top layer perspective, what they said was that like the whole NFT space, like where you've gone and seen, like there's been a lot of hype around NFTs, people making multi-millions, like it's all based on like scarce theory, where as long as you can have like one unique NFT, like you Bored Apes, which is like unique, super duper rare, people will pay so much money in order to have that rare ape. Now, that is basically what they like. If I was to try and replicate that within their music, within the official charts, they said that that wasn't allowed. And so basically, they said that how we could then use the technology is if we was to use NFTs as merchandise. And so obviously, as merch, you can like attach also t-shirts, you can attach posters. Like Muse the week after went and attached their ticket sales, and they went straight to #1 because they went on tour. Obviously, they went and sold 50,000 tickets, attached their album to it. Of course, they're going to get to #1. Yeah. But that's how they gamed the system. But that's a whole conversation in itself. So what we went and did was we went and created art pieces, and what we learned was that we weren't allowed to do the like one-off art piece. Because they gave us the example of BTS. They said obviously BTS, the K-pop band, they've got about 30 people in their band or whatever. And so what they found was that fans wouldn't buy just one CD. They'd buy all the CDs of all the different images of the boy band, each individual boy band who at the front of the CD. Right. And obviously that's great. It would inflate the number of sales, which is amazing for the record label, amazing for management, but it's not fair on the charts because people are not buying the CDs to listen to the music. They're buying it as a collector's piece. And so it's not fair on the charts. Likewise, you have this whole issue about how much CDs should be priced. It can't be priced under a certain amount because if it's really, really low, then obviously if you charge it at £1, anybody can buy it for £1. Yeah. And it's but then you've got other CDs that are being charged for £20, and it's just not, it just doesn't equate. And so because of that, what we went and did was we created a piece of artwork for each single, and we couldn't limit the number, so we had to make an open editions. And so you could basically decide on what like artwork for what single you wanted, and then once you bought that NFT, that was attached to the price or the sale of the actual vinyl or CD. And so once you bought that NFT, you got a vinyl that then impacted the UK charts position of H. And so it was great because obviously we got to #2 in the charts. I mean, we lost out to Steps, but I mean, what can you do? Like they got some bangers, and it was their 25-year anniversary. So but overall, it was a really dope case study to kind of showcase what we could do with the tech in terms of people who actually went out their way to buy the CD, buy the NFT so that they can get a limited edition album copy. And it was just really, really exciting. Really exciting.
That's brilliant. And that's, #2, still a bloody good achievement. Yeah,
but it's only the winners that get to tell the stories.
Still.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, because the little video clip and stuff of it all, it's just like wow. And again, you're getting something's a bit special. It's not just like, because downloads, it was great because it made music really easy and that, but that was it. You just got the music, whereas this just adds a whole new dimension to it all and just gives the fan that much more, and brings imagery back as well, which those classic album covers from back in the day, my day, just
I think like the main thing about this technology is that it's finally ascribing value to digital creations, and I think that's a concept that hasn't existed before, especially within the music space. So like obviously you got MP3s, you got JPEGs, you got all of these different files that people just copy and paste for free. And now all of a sudden you can copy and paste it, and then you can track where these files are going, and you can actually attach a monetary value to them. And I think that's the main thing, where obviously it's a completely new concept. And when you've got files that people have been doing it for free, using it for free, and then all of a sudden you're telling them that you're going to have to start paying for it, yeah, obviously you're going to get a bit of backlash. But the fact that the technology is there through blockchain technology, it's just going to be a game changer. And I think like this is just the beginning of what's capable. And I think like the sweet spot is where you get like use of blockchain technology to add value, the use of AI in order to simplify the process, and then use of human intervention to be able to monetize it all. I think that that's where the space is going to go, and it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, and hopefully for artists and musicians and creators, it's money in their pockets, which I'm always all for. Because when you go way back when, like you're saying about the old contracts, the 80-20 split, and artists sort of on the breadline, and George Michael and and Wham having to borrow their bus fare to get home, having just done Top of the Pops when they were performing their #1 song. It's just like, what is that about? And so
no, that's really interesting, that like because when you hear about stories of massive artists who don't have any money, and it's like, it's an awkward one, because obviously, let's say Wham, for instance, they've just gone to #1, they've released their album. Obviously, album sales, how long does it take for an artist to get their money from album sales? From a publishing standpoint, they're going to be waiting 18 months to 24 months. Like, and then on the record side, it's like, well, if you've got an advance and you've been given that advance and you're not savvy with your money, then like you are going to have to get a bus back home, especially when you're a new artist, then you've not even kept the lights on yet. Like now, in retrospect, you can do that, but obviously back then it was a completely different market. So you heard those stories a lot.
I was recouped, but then I got another advance, so I'm back in being recouped again. So it'd be good to see those days gone. And though, the democratization, or the sort of digital space has democratized the music industry, like you said, there's still aspects of it that are still the same. I can remember, because having to, spent 21 years teaching young people, especially when we got to the 2000s, and I said, one day you will be paying for your music that you download. No, I'm never going to pay for it. And I said, well, yeah, you will. It's not always going to be free. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I did know that at some point, that free peer-to-peer sharing, the free downloads, I knew that eventually it would come into its own, and people would start. And once it did, there wasn't that much backlash. And of course, Spotify was a classic example, because of course you downloaded stuff for free, and as long as you were happy with the adverts. If you don't want the adverts, you subscribe. So there were options. So
I think that obviously the reason why Spotify was so successful was because it created a better product than Kazaa, WinMX, all of those platforms back then. Like when I ask people, here's a pop quiz question: when was the first streaming platform created? What year? Give me a guess.
Anyone out there want to have a guess? Out of those three of you that are here tonight? God.
(2006). You've got 2006.
No, I was thinking. I would have assumed it would be later than that, but then.
I thought it was earlier, like 2004 or something. I thought it was earlier, 2002, 2004.
No, because it was downloading then, and I'm just going back. 2010?
No, the first streaming platform was created in 1993.
No, don't tell me that.
It's 1993. So Mark Cuban, who obviously owns like the Mavericks and whatnot, he claims that he created the first streaming platform, but he didn't. He created one of the first ones to do. He created the first one that went commercial, but it wasn't the first iteration of a streaming platform. And so that it was created by I think it was like a German company that did like streaming for. I can't remember the actual the sports that they were streaming, but either way, the first one happened in 93. So that meant that Spotify, when it got released in 2008, had 15 years worth of data to be able to basically take the best bits. And off the back of that, like they were able to see, okay, so this streaming platform did this streaming platform did that. They looked at like the music industry, like I think it was Universal, Warner, whatnot. They tried to create their own streaming platform, and it failed because nobody really cares about like labels back then. They just cared about the music. And so what you found was like they basically were able to create a product that was so good, better than the downloads like platforms, because one of the issues was like I remember when I first used these illegal downloading websites, you'll sit there, download it, it'll take you 2 days to get a song, and it turns out to be a wrong song, or Soulja Boy decided to put his song on it even though you're trying to download 50 Cent. And so it was like there was no quality control. And so the fact that you can have all of these songs at your disposal, like you can quickly type it, listen to it instantly. Like I didn't mind having a 30-second ad if I knew that I was going to get access to my songs. Allow it. I mean, if I was able to pay £10 a month and I could get no ads, it was just a no-brainer. The issue is that they've stuck at £10 a month for the past 15 years, and so they've not gone up with inflation. But that's obviously because that's a whole different argument around like competition within the within streaming platforms, because they have to be competitive against Apple, where obviously Apple streaming isn't their main source of income. They get their money from hardware, and so that's part of the reason why Spotify is still not profitable, is because they're still trying to be competitive with Apple, and they don't want to be able to lose that market share. But anyway, but the point is like streaming was there to solve an issue. It solved that issue, and now there's opportunities beyond it where like streaming can be seen as a radio play because of the playlisting. It can be seen as a normal digital download because you can just listen to any songs that you want. And so it's in that gray area where it's like a hybrid of like all models. But then it's a hybrid of all models, but it has a completely different payment system. So it's very interesting.
And I think, I think it will. I think there won't be that much pushback from people when it comes to, you got to pay for this image though, especially when you're sort of saying but you're not just getting this image, you're getting this song, you're going to get this with it as well. I think, 10, 15 years ago, young'uns would, they would kick back. They love their peer-to-peer, and though there was no quality control, they'd still pursue it. LimeWire, when that came, I can remember that was being chatted about in class loads, and then to see where LimeWire is today, and that they're effectively one of your clients that you consult on their behalf to develop, and I'm assuming you're behind the development of their NFT provision now.
So we partner with them for obviously work for them on an ad hoc basis. We work with them on an H project and also done a couple of other stuff with them. But with that, LimeWire, they are a completely different team to the old team that was back in the 2000s. So is the new team are guys who basically bought the copyright and they're trying to relaunch as an NFT platform. And so they're just looking to do stuff within the community and creating their own community, which I definitely feel is like a trend that's happening now with a lot of different music platforms. They're basically trying to create their own community and like basically token gate it so that if people want access to different type of experiences, they know where to go to get them.
Right. And because that's going to sort of bring another dimension, isn't it? Another platform into the mix. because as I mentioned to you when we were doing our planning meeting about my first sort of experience or knowledge of blockchain was reading about Ujo Music, and it's before it was actually named Ujo Music. Working as a, I suppose, as a distributor, because it supplied the songs to all the retail outlets. But it was also the way it monetized everything and how the artist had control over who received what and what percentage share they got. I mean, there are there other blockchain labels out there, and do you think they'll move into sort of space like LimeWire's trying to develop now? In other words, where do you see it going, Des? I'll stop faffing and get straight to the point. Where do you see it going?
I mean, there's so many different ways. I think now's the
Yeah.
time, because like the markets are kind of gone down. Like now's the time where you find a lot of people now starting to build like different platforms. And so what you have is platforms like Sound XYZ, you've got which is like a community-based platform where you can release music and then you can get paid. You can get paid by investors or whatnot to basically start monetizing your music. And then you've got Audius, which is basically like a Web3 SoundCloud where you can get paid tokens for putting your music up on there and stuff. But it really does come down to how, as an artist, you want to be able to utilize the technology. And so at the moment, what I've noticed is that there was this trend of people trying to sell their songs or rights of their songs as NFTs, which is absolutely fine. But the issue is that how is that going to be governed? Who's going to policy that? Like when you get your splits or when you get paid your royalties, like, yeah, you might own that as an NFT, but how can you guarantee that somebody's going to that person owns royalties, then going to send that over to you, you know? And then you have the whole idea around like, if you own like a percentage of a song, let's say like, I mean, a couple of years back, you had platforms like Royal and whatnot who was selling ownership of actual song royalties, and they were making like 750k, several £100,000 per song royalties to say, oh, you're able to own a percentage of a Nas track, you're able to own a percentage of Snoop Dogg's tracks. I'm like, okay, then that's cool, but then that percentage of that Nas song, if I'm spending 750k, how much does that song have to stream for me to recoup my investment? Now, let's do the maths. We all know that 1 million streams at the moment is probably about 1,000 on average, if that. Yeah, a month. Now, if you're earning 1 million streams, if you're earning 3,000 per million streams, I mean, how many millions do you have to stream in order to make 750k? It's a lot. And when you look at the number of artists who are doing that, it's a very tiny number. Yes. And I don't know if you've seen Nas's numbers, but he is not streaming that many in comparison to these other artists, because he's a legacy artist and he's not from this particular era. And so this is why I'm like, you have to treat it as if it's like a collectible rather than a monetary asset. It's a collectible asset, but it's not something that's going to be able to earn you recurring income. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I've just one last thing. You with Soga World, you work with specific projects. It's not something like, having just read up on the new LimeWire, the reborn LimeWire, where it looks like people will be able to join that as an artist and encourage their fans to join as well. So like a digital distributor, it's the same thing. Anyone can do that. Anyone could join it and take advantages of the services and the NFT options there. For Soga World, you actually work with specific people, don't you? You don't just work with anyone.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to what is that we want to try and achieve. So, we'll we'll have a chat with the particular platform or project, and we basically do a vetting process and see if it's something that we can impact.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to put that out there so that people knew and understood. All right. Nigel's saying he's going to have, he think he's going to have to go, or he has gone. But I'll put out for questions now to the others, because I think we've just about done 45 minutes, just over 45 minutes of the actual discussion. So you two, that have you got any questions that you'd like to ask Des?
No, so how that particular thing worked was, so when you have your album cover, instead of having all the BTS on one album cover, they would have one individual person. So let's say if it was the Spice Girls, they would have like Jerry on one album, then you'd have the Mel B on another album, then you have Mel C on another album. Even though all the albums have the same music, the album covers are different. And so people are not buying the albums for the music, they're buying it for the album covers. So but even though they're buying it, it's still impacting the chart sales. And so what the OCC was saying was that that's not allowed. So you can do that, but then it would only count for one sale of the album, or the album wouldn't be registered for the charts, because you're gaming the system. You're basically tricking people to buy more CDs rather than buying it for the sake of music appreciation, if that makes sense.
All right, Des. Well, thank you very much. That's really fascinating, really interesting. And yeah, an old dog's learned a couple of new tricks, but it's just like, it's just more music industry in my brain, you know, which is full up with a load of stuff. Because yeah, I go back as far as, when did we move up here? 84. So yeah, sort of got into the industry about 87. So yeah, definitely an old dog me. All right, love. Well, look, good luck with all the PhD, and thank you so much. It's just been, yeah, really, and good luck with Soga and everything.
Cheers, much appreciated.
Okay, all right, and take care.
You too.
All right,
Bye.
See you. Bye.